We are live. Can you all hear us? Nope.
We have no sound from the chambers, by the way. Everything is muted. Hopefully they can hear me.
We can. Yes. Can you see my phone?
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
You can hear us?
Yes.
Perfect.
Are we live?
We are live. Yes.
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome you to the regular meeting of the Milwaukie Planning Commission. Agendas and additional copies of staff reports are available on the city website at www.milwaukieoregon.gov. You may locate them by navigating to the community calendar where tonight's meeting page is posted. If you have not reviewed the agenda, please do so. It contains important information about the process. Speaking of process, we have no officers here tonight, and so the first thing we need to do is elect the chair pro tem to chair of the meeting. And I'm prepared to do so if I can receive a nomination.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Edge as our chair pro tem.
Thank you. I have a nomination. Is there a second?
Yeah, I will second that.
Nomination is second. All those in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you. I will chair the meeting. So first off, our native lands acknowledgement. The city of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Calapooya etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. I'd just like to offer a moment of silence in recognition of the Calapooya. Thank you. So we have minutes from, we need to approve the August 13th meeting minute. Does anyone have any corrections to make? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the notes as presented.
Second. Or
who? I didn't hear the motion.
motion to approve the minutes.
And
okay.
I'll second it.
Perfect. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Thank you. Informational items. Are there any informational items from staff?
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know that Vice Chair Freeman, sorry, I had to space out there for a second, resigned from the Planning Commission. He had some other commitments that he needed to focus on. So at the moment we are out without a vice chair. And so normally we would go ahead and kind of talk about who might be the vice chair and who might want to be in that role. But since there's only 4 of you all here tonight, we thought we might wait until the next meeting to have that discussion. So we'll do that. And then also to let you know that because the city council had approved an alternate to the planning commission as part of kind of the larger recruitment process last fall, we already have Max Pennick is going to join the planning commission. They've already been approved by the city council. They have to go through kind of a formal approval process, but he will be joining us on our meeting on November 12th. And so we'll have a new commissioner, which is great because on November 12th, we're going to do our annual joint meeting with the NDAs and a little bit of PC orientation. So that's really good timing to bring somebody on new. So that's what I've got.
Great, thank you. Okay, audience participation. This is an opportunity to comment on items not on tonight's agenda. Does any audience member wish to comment on an item that is not on tonight's commission agenda? And if participating virtually, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom to indicate that you wish to make a comment. For any audience members who have called into the Zoom meeting by phone, you can dial *9 to indicate that you wish to make a comment. Do we have any audience members virtually or in the room who wish to comment?
It does not look like it, no.
Okay, thank you. we will move on then to our CIAC. So at this point of the agenda, the commission will act as the Community Involvement Advisory Committee. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak with the Planning Commission in their role as the CIAC? And the same instructions apply. If you're in Zoom, you can raise your hand or dial *9 if you're connected by phone. Does anybody wish to testify?
I don't see anybody in the room or online.
Or comment? Okay. So we will move into our hearing item then. So the next agenda item is a Type 3 conditional use application, and the Type 3 hearing for conditional use application is called to order. The agenda item is a public hearing to consider application primary file number CU-2024-001. The purpose of this application is to allow a single detached residential unit to be used as a vacation rental. The applicant has the burden of proving that the application is consistent with the city's zoning ordinance, comprehensive plan, and any applicable municipal code provisions, and that the proposal conforms with the applicable criteria. I now ask staff to cite the municipal code section or sections where the criteria can be found.
Yeah, the sections are MMC section 19301, which is the moderate density residential zone, MMC section 19905, which is for conditional uses, and MMC section 19106, which establishes the review process for Type 3 applications.
Thank you. All testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable substantive criteria. Failure to address a criterion or raise an issue with sufficient detail to allow the Planning Commission an adequate opportunity to respond to each issue precludes appeal to the City Council based on that issue. Failure to raise constitutional or other issues related to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient detail to allow a response precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Any party with standing may appeal the decision of the Planning Commission to the City Council. Persons with standing are those who submit comments or testify. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the Commission may, if requested, allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Any such continuance or extension shall be subject to the limitations of the 120-day rule unless the continuance or extension is requested or agreed to by the applicant. And so the chair has the option of limiting the time for comments. I believe that's what this note is about, although it doesn't say that explicitly. It doesn't say comments explicitly, so sorry about that in the script. That was missing a little bit of detail. So the limits that will be imposed are 3 minutes per commenter tonight. We'll move into the conflicts of interest. Does any member of the commission wish to abstain from this hearing? No. Does any member of the commission wish to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest? No. Does any member of the commission wish to report on any ex parte contact? No. No. Will any commissioner who has visited the site prior to this hearing please raise their hand? Did any commissioners who visited the site speak to anyone at the site or note anything different from what is indicated in the staff report for this application?
No.
No.
No. Does any member of the audience wish to challenge the participation of any member of the Planning Commission?
No.
Thank you. And then does any member of the audience wish to challenge the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission to hear this matter?
No.
Thank you. Let's proceed to the staff report.
Pause just 1 second. Hang on just a second. We do have some folks here that want to testify, but they are not questioning the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone see the presentation?
We're seeing the presenter's view,
Oh, fun.
not the full screen.
Okay. Huh. Presenter's view, but not the whole. Let me try this.
Can you swap it using the
Yeah.
display settings menu?
How about that?
There you go.
Good?
That's perfect.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Ryan Dyer, and I'm an associate planner here at the city, and I'm going to be giving the presentation on land use file CU-2024-001, which is a conditional use application to initiate a vacation rental at 11932 Southeast 35th Avenue. Come on. Okay. So just to provide an overview of the property, the site is approximately just over 7,000 square feet. It's on the east side of 35th Avenue in the Lake Road neighborhood. It's developed with a single detached dwelling, a house, and the property in the properties, I should say, in the immediate vicinity are zoned moderate density residential, as is the property itself. In terms of land use history, in 2023, the property was divided to create new developable lots to the north, although no permits have been submitted to date for that property. And then in this year, you likely all remember that the applicant applied for a variance to extend a non-conforming side yard setback to add on to the garage. This body approved that request. It was then appealed to City Council, who affirmed that decision. I bring this up mostly to say that this is a separate application from those applications. The recent approvals are unrelated to this current application. So, each land use application must be evaluated independently based on the specifics of the application and the city's comprehensive plan and code requirements. So vacation rentals, the RMD zone allows for vacation rentals as a conditional use. We make a distinction in our code between short-term rentals and vacation rentals, somewhat confusingly. The distinction is based primarily on occupancy, i.e. is the unit primarily used as somebody's residence, and they're just, renting out a room or a basement on a short-term basis, but primarily they live there, or is it primarily used for this sort of limited duration rental purposes? Our code uses a 270-day threshold to establish if a dwelling is used primarily as somebody's residence. So if that's not the case, meaning the operator of the rental is not residing at the property for at least 270 days per calendar year, they must obtain a conditional use permit if they want to lease out their home for a period fewer than 30 days. So our code kind of recognizes that a vacation rental is a little more commercial in nature than a short-term rental. MMC section 19905 establishes approval criteria for creating a new conditional use in the city. The proposal must comply with all of the approval criteria. However, staff believe that those highlighted here in yellow are most pertinent for vacation rentals, but I'll go through all of them. So to be approved, a vacation rental, the characteristics of the lot must be suitable for the proposed use. In this case, the vacation rental, the operating and physical characteristics of the proposed use must be reasonably compatible with nearby uses. All identified impacts must be mitigated to the extent that's practicable. The proposed use must not have any unmitigated nuisance impacts greater than those usually generated by uses allowed outright in the zone. So in this case, residential uses. The proposed use will comply with applicable development standards and requirements of the base zone, any overlay zones for the property, of which there are none here, and specific standards for conditional uses specified in section 19905. The proposed uses must be consistent with applicable comprehensive plan policies, and adequate public transportation facilities, and public utilities must be available. So focusing on, the findings that you all received in the packet, addressed all of these, but focusing just on those highlighted, starting with the operating and physical characteristics of the proposed use, that they are reasonably compatible with nearby uses. Staff found by reviewing the application that the property is going to retain the appearance of a single detached dwelling. So that's sort of looking at the physical characteristics. And then from an operating characteristics perspective, the applicant has, offered that they are going to have their rental agreement will include some standards, including maintaining quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., and then placing a limitation on the number of guests that can rent the property at one time. They have a no smoking policy. And so cumulatively, looking at the evidence in the application, staff found that the operating and physical characteristics are reasonably compatible with nearby uses, that it was mostly going to operate in a way that was similar to other properties nearby. Looking at all identified impacts to be mitigated, again, we didn't note any specific impacts. And should there be impacts that are unanticipated, the owner will remain in Clackamas County and can respond to those concerns. In addition, one of the requirements for vacation rentals in our code is that applicants send out annually a notice to properties within 300 feet. That notice has to include certain information, such as their contact information. In addition to that, the City of Milwaukee's police non-emergency line, so that should issues arise, those can be dealt with. Moving on, the code requires that the proposed use will not have any unmitigated nuisance impacts greater than those usually generated by uses allowed outright. So some of this is somewhat duplicative. Like I said, uses allowed outright in this zone, the RMD zone, are residential in nature, and staff believe that the limitations in the rental agreements that the applicant is offering will ensure that the use operates in a way that is compatible with other nearby residential uses. So that includes the guest limitation of 6. The way the vacation rentals are typically used is similar to those. They're for residential purposes. They're for eating, sleeping, uses that would occur at any house in the area. And then I think finally, the proposed use needs to be consistent with the applicable comprehensive plan policies. So the comprehensive plan does speak to vacation rentals. It says that the city needs to be monitoring for their effects on long-term housing affordability. And so we just wanted to note here that as these numbers come from our housing needs analysis, where we inventory housing units in the city. The city currently has 9,627, I should say approximately, housing units. And 6,450 of those are single detached dwellings. So all in all, looking at the percentage of vacation rentals that we have in the city, which is currently 7, or this would be 7, that's 0.07% of all housing units are vacation rentals, and 0.01% of this specific housing type, single detached dwellings, are vacation rentals currently. So as of now, it is not looking like vacation rentals are having much of an impact on the overall supply of housing in the city. So recommended conditions of approval, as I stated, section 19.9059 includes additional standards that govern specific conditional uses, so vacation rentals in this case. The recommended conditions of approval basically repeat those standards to ensure compliance. So prior to initial occupancy, the applicant would need to obtain a building permit from our city's building division that ensures fire life safety is met. Annually, the operator is required to file for a business license, and with that, send out a notice to neighbors within 300 feet that includes the following information: their contact information, the vacation rentals operator and or property manager's contact information, and the City of Milwaukee's police non-emergency telephone number. And then, of course, they have to record this with those conditions with the county. So the application was referred and sent out for public notice. We did, through the referral, receive a comment from Paul Hawkins, the land use chair of the Lake Road NDA. He commented that he hopes the venture could be a win for everybody. From a public comment perspective, we did receive 2 comments. One earlier and then one actually yesterday evening, which was then sent out to the Planning Commission today. I would say both, I would characterize them as sort of policy disagreements. There was generally, not commenting on the specifics of this application, but more disagreeing in principle that the city should be allowing vacation rentals for various reasons mentioned in those comments. Some of them sort of operational in nature, fears that that they would negatively alter the character and well-being of the community, but then also a concern for the impacts on housing affordability. Staff's recommendation, as noted in the staff report, is that you approve the conditional use and adopt the recommended findings and conditions of approval. But of course, you have 4 options, as always, here. So in addition to the recommendation, you can approve the application with additional modifications to the findings and conditions of approval. Those modifications would need to be read into the record. You could also continue the hearing, or you could deny the application. I'll finally note that the 120-day statutory deadline for making a final decision on this application is December 27th, 2024. And then I'm open for questions.
Are there any clarifying questions for staff?
Are we going to be hearing from the applicant as well? Is there any other information coming?
The applicant, I spoke with the applicant earlier today. It's possible that they have called in. We do have somebody. Let me see here. If I can allow to talk. Yes, I've got a hand raised. Phone number with the last 4 digits, 1032. You should be able to speak. But we're not ready for that.
I'm the
Okay.
Or I am the applicant. I'm called in over the phone.
Thank you, Kristen. Well, yeah, we will, there will be an opportunity for you to speak.
Any other questions from the commission for staff? Okay, well, great. Thank you. Thank you for the thorough presentation. Have we received any correspondence on this matter other than those items included in the meeting packet or otherwise described in the presentation?
No, you've seen everything.
Okay. Let's see. So now is the time for the applicant or the representative to make a presentation or comment. Would you like to do so?
One moment, I'm asking her to unmute.
Hi, Ryan, did you want me to, you said address the comments that were received on the application?
Not
This
necessarily.
is your opportunity to, just describe your application and make any other comments to the Planning Commission that you'd like to make in support of your application.
Oh, okay. Well, our application is for using our property as a short-term rental. And you previously had an application for a type 3 variance. I'd just like everyone to know that our plans have changed and we withdrew that application or that option. And therefore, we will not be extending the garage, but we will be moving. And that is the reason for this application, is that we would like to use it as a vacation rental. We will abide by all the quiet hours and all the necessary rules that are in place to have this vacation rental operating. If there are any other comments or questions, I'd be happy to answer those questions and respond to those comments as well.
Thank you. Yes, this is an opportunity for the commissioners to ask any questions of the applicant. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a quick question if I could. Could you? Awesome, thanks, Chair, or Chair Pro Tem, or Vice Chair Pro Tem, I don't remember, sorry. So could you talk a little bit about if someone's having an issue with the house, or maybe a neighbor is having an issue with, say it's noise or whatever, and they contact you and, maybe you're not available, do you have a contingency plan for someone that would be able to cover in that instance? I'm just thinking about maybe it's late at night and it's, a long drive, or could you talk a little bit more about if there's how you'll resolve issues when you might not be immediately available or when you're not in the immediate vicinity of the property?
Sure. I plan to be, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and I plan to be available all of the time. But in the case that I'm not, I will have a secondary contact. It will be either my husband or my mother that we also want to add the phone numbers and make them available. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant while we have her?
I have two questions. First, a short answer. Have you chosen, a company that you're going to be doing this through? Like, is this going to be through Airbnb? Is it going to be through Vacasa? I guess I'm just curious how the property would be managed or how the rental agreements would be managed.
We were planning on using Airbnb.
Okay. So in that case,
I apologize. I am in the initial stages, though, of planning this. We're still going to be living here for some time, probably until the end of the year. So I'm still in the initial stages of planning and setting this up. But we're planning on using it through Airbnb.
understood. Thank you. So my question related to that is, I noticed that it stated in the application that there would be no parties allowed. And I know that I have seen some information in the news in the past where folks have had issues with parties occurring at Airbnb rentals. So I'm curious, how would you help mitigate for the potential for an issue like a party? Will it be very clearly stated in the rental agreement? Would there be some sort of ramifications to having a party, like an extra fee? I'm just kind of curious how it would be possible to try to mitigate for the potential of a party occurring.
Sure. I stayed at plenty of Airbnbs, and that is one of the terms in each and every agreement that I've seen, that there's no parties allowed, and this is going to be also a strict policy of ours. So in case that there is a party, I believe that we're able to escort them out and not refund them. So in like the agreement, it states strictly that they will forfeit their the rest of their stay and money. I don't know the exact wording, but I will be working with a special person that specializes in these agreements, and I do promise that I will for sure add that party restriction, that there's no parties and no people over the amount of allowed persons, which we state like 5-6 people. And if there's any not even a party, but if there's any more people than the allowed number, there's also a fee for that.
Thank you. And just real quick follow-up, one other question I had. And I noticed it said there had been no smoking policy. I assume that's just going to be enforced on the interior of the property, because it had mentioned that would limit like odors, nuisance from odor. But I assume that you can only regulate that on the interior, or is there going to be something stated where there's no smoking anywhere on the property?
I want there not to be any smoking anywhere on the property. If I'm able to write that in the agreement, I will. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to regulate. I think, I've seen something say like within, 20 feet of the property. I've seen rental agreements that say things like that. If I'm able to legally write in the agreement that there's no smoking whatsoever, I will gladly do that. I will find out what would be the correct wording for that. But I do plan on stating that there's no smoking on my property at all.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you. This may be more of a question for staff, if I may, or I can hold that for another time.
Unless it's a question for the applicant, go ahead and hold it for now.
Thanks, I'll hold.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, well, thank you for coming and speaking for your application and taking some questions from the commission. We will move on, and there may be another opportunity. We'll let you know if there's another opportunity for you to comment. We will now recognize the person submitting public testimony on this application. If you are here to testify, please remember to confine your remarks to the application and the relevant criteria, and to avoid repetition and information not relevant. If you're here to comment, please state your name and city of residence for the record so they may be entered into the minutes. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in support of the application?
We do not have anyone that wishes to speak in support of the application.
Okay, do we have anyone who wishes to speak in opposition of the application?
Yes, we do. We have two folks in the audience here. I will go ahead and call them up. We've got
Okay.
Lauren Robinson and Nancy Chantler. Come on up. You can just be sure to
So
state.
again, yes, please state your name, first and last name, and city of residence for the record.
My name
And then you'll have 3 minutes to comment.
My name is Nancy Chantler. I live at 11910 Southeast 35th Avenue. I'm the applicant's direct neighbor north of her. And I I don't really want a motel next door, because that's what it'll be. And it sounds to me like she hasn't put a program together. She doesn't know what her lease is going to look like. And it looks to me like if there's no smoking on the property, then they're just going to walk 20 feet from the property and smoke in front of my house. They're going to park in front of my house. And I'm a 74-year-old widow. The woman who lives directly across the street from her is an 86-year-old widow. The woman who lives directly south of her is a widow who's retired nurse, and I know she's over 60. I don't know what her age is. But it sounds to me like when she has people coming in to stay, she has no way to police them because she doesn't live there. She won't be living there. So we will then become the police if some knuckleheads get in there and they start doing stuff they're not supposed to do. It'll be up to us to call the police. It'll be up to us to get them off our property. It'll be up to us to, if they're parking in front of our house for the garbage man to pick up our garbage, they can't get to our garbage, whatever. And I don't want to be a policeman, and I don't want people that are coming next door in and out, that I don't know who they are. And it just is a safety concern to me. There's nobody else on our street that does that. This is a residential, family-oriented. There's a lot of people who've lived there a long time. I've lived there 47 years. And in my 47 years of living there, when you turn off Lake Road going up my street, up 35th, it's a steep hill. When you get to the top of the hill, which is where she lives on the right-hand side, the street does not go straight. It immediately kind of has a left turn angle to it. There used to be 3 trees in front of their house, and those trees have been hit 3 times by people coming up that street that have never come up the street before, that have slammed into those trees. One ended up in my front yard, backwards. And so if you're bringing in people that don't know the street, and maybe they've been drinking a little or something, and they come up our street, it's just a real narrow blind because you're right at the top of the hill. You cannot see over the hill. And it's very narrow there, especially if there's people parking on both sides of the street. And it's not a safe area for people who don't know where they're going or what they're doing. And I'll be calling 911. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Robinson, and I live at 11888 Southeast 35th, so I'm next to Nancy. My concerns of having a short-term rental in the neighborhood are just the integrity of the neighborhood. I have 2 small children. I don't love the fact that there would be random people staying 2 houses down. My other concerns are parking. Right now, they only have 1 parking spot, and that's for their house currently. And there's a lot of street parking, which probably only adds to the safety factor. I've been in my house for 4 years, and we've had 2 cars run into on that hill coming up. So just to give you an idea of the frequency of accidents that happen there. Yeah, I just am concerned about the character of the neighborhood. Most people have lived there 30 plus years. So that's all.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there any questions for the commenters from the commission? Okay, well, thank you very much for your comments. I do have, just to follow up with staff, are there any responses to the testimony from staff?
No.
Was that a no?
Oh, yes, sorry, no.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We will move on for now. Does the applicant have any rebuttal or any additional comments in response to the public testimony?
It does not appear so.
Okay. Then I will close the public testimony portion of the...
One moment. Sorry. I think Christina might actually want to say something. Hold on. The hand has been raised. Okay, Christina, you should be able to talk.
I'd just like to clarify the amount of parking spaces we have, which is one. It was stated that we have one, which is not true. We have one in the garage, and then we have an extra long driveway for 2 cars additional. That's not including street parking. But the amount of people we will have allowed, there won't be a lot of cars because there's no parties allowed, and there will be a restriction of 2 cars. So that should be plenty enough, like not even including the street parks. There should be plenty of room for 2, even 3 cars, although I don't anticipate anyone staying there who would have 3 cars. So that's just my comments in response to the parking.
Okay, thank you. I did skip over the opportunity for neutral speakers. Was there anybody from the audience that wished to testify, offer neutral testimony?
No, there's not.
Okay. Now I will close the public testimony portion of this hearing. Public testimony portion of the hearing on the vacation rental at 11932 Southeast 35th Avenue, primary file number CU-2024-001 is now closed. Let's see. So now are we ready for discussion? So I guess this would be an opportunity to ask any questions of staff. Sorry, I guess I skipped over that. Commissioner Carpenter, did you want to ask staff any questions before we get into deliberation?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. One question is part of the approval process, do we require the applicant to provide an operational plan or operational statement that would outline some of the issues that were discussed in terms of parking and further hours of operation? I know that was discussed, but I just want to make sure that as this is recorded, is that operation plan also being recorded?
Yeah, thanks for the question. No, we don't have a requirement that they provide that rental contract as it is subject to change. We also, can no longer require off-street parking for any uses in the city. So we wouldn't want to be dictating that in any, be included in any rental agreement. Was there another concern that I'm missing? Oh, quiet hours. I think generally, the city does have a noise ordinance. And so I think as with any use in the property or any use in the city, the vacation rental would also be subject to the city's noise ordinance. So could be addressed through that provision.
Thanks.
Okay, is the commission ready for deliberation, or is there any other questions for staff before we move into that portion?
Just one quick clarification about the use of non-emergency. So non-emergency is available, as they say, everyone within 300 feet gets that number and is encouraged to call if there's an issue. If they were to see a party, would that be, normally you wouldn't call non-emergency because you see a party. However, those folks would be aware that parties are not supposed to be occurring. So would it be appropriate for them, or would they be encouraged or able to call non-emergency if they were to see something like a party happening?
it seems to me that it would be more appropriate for them to call the property manager first rather than police non-emergency, since there is no approval criterion that says that parties cannot happen, just as parties could happen at anybody's house in the city.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Carpenter, your hand is raised.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a follow-up clarification on the code. Do we specifically define what a party is? I think that gets a little tricky and opens us up to some gray area. So if you could speak to that, staff, that'd be great.
Yeah, there is no definition in 19201 for a party. I'll also just say that I mentioned that this would be our 7th vacation rental in the city, and that I don't believe that we have received any complaints for any of our vacation rentals.
Okay, thanks.
And then I have a clarifying question that, when we're talking about, parties or, these other specific impacts, or, these other impacts that have been discussed, really what the city is allowed to regulate is noise. That's pretty much the extent of it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay. Then let's see. Does anyone want to get the discussion started? Okay, well then I will be glad to. So I have, listened to the staff report. I read through the staff report. I read through the findings and conditions of approval, and do believe that the findings reflect the facts in the record, and that the criteria is satisfied by the facts in the record. So at this point, I'm prepared to vote in approval of the proposal with the conditions of approval as put forward by staff. This is pretty much our standard way that we handle vacation rentals in the city. There have been few so far, obviously, as evidenced by the staff report. And so with so few, we don't have a large sample of experience to draw upon, but this is what staff has put forward, and the conditions of approval is consistent with what we've done in other cases. And as Ryan mentioned, we have not had any complaints, and so the certainly what we're putting forward does seem to be effective, at least for this kind of use in the city where we have them. So anyway, with that said, again, I think everything, all of the criteria has been satisfied by what we've seen. So I'm prepared to vote to approve. Are there any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Carpenter, I see your hand went right up.
Thanks. I would agree that the application meets the code requirement, but I think my recommendation to staff is to continue to look at this code and see ways to better button it up. So this isn't specific to this application, but wanted to get my piece in about that, because I think there is some issues around approving a project, again, without a requirement that they provide their rental agreement up front. If they, again, when are we going to be able to review that? We won't. Yes, we have our standards, our code requirements for a nuisance that is still in effect. Yes, I get that, but it would be good to know that their rental agreement does in fact meet our ordinance. So that's one thing. The second thing, it's to address comments from community members in regards to concerns around rental agreements taking away from housing stock. I think that's a real concern. However, the folks who have this application and the other applications that we've seen, by and large, have been local residents, remain in the area, or close enough, have family and friends in the area who will maintain the property. I don't see this application as, in addition to someone's portfolio from, some crazy real estate development firm. I think it's something to keep our eyes on, but again, I don't see that this is the case where we're running into a widespread run on real estate where this particular use of property is driving up costs of single family development or single family properties. So I think I am ready to put my support in this application as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Are there other comments from commissioners in the room?
Yeah, I would like to weigh in as well. I agree with a lot of what Commissioner Carpenter said. So I guess first from kind of the policy question of what does this mean for our housing market? Definitely just want to continue to be very sensitive to that. And I appreciate that the two of these that we've had since I've been on the commission, we've also received kind of the data around how many there are in total. And I would continue to encourage us to think about if we need to be specific about setting a threshold or think, very specifically about at which point that becomes a problem, because I think at some point it doesn't seem like it's too much of a concern, but we could reach a situation where kind of the cat's out the bag at that point and it's hard to backtrack. So I'd like to be a little proactive at some point about that. And I don't know when the right time to have that discussion is. But on the specific application, I think I agree that the criteria are met in the application. And I would also agree that it would be helpful to see more detail around these. And I think I looked back at the most recent vacation use rental that came before us. And there was a lot of really specific detail that I thought actually went much further in mitigating some of the issues than this application does. And not using that as a direct comparison, but if one were to think about other things that someone could do to try to mitigate some of the nuisance, if you will, that might come from this, I think there could be more done around kind of screening for applicants. I think in the past, possibly people have limited it to folks who have rented with Airbnb before, or folks who have 5-star reviews only. And I think that's a very thoughtful approach to an application like this. And I didn't see that same level of detail in this application, frankly. And so, while I think that it does meet the criteria, and I do think I would vote in support because as it's presented to us and as we are charged with enforcing the code, I think it does meet that. I would also encourage the applicant to consider taking a step further to really take some of these concerns from their neighbors to heart and think about ways that can be that you can maybe be a bit more stringent with who's renting and with how you're really mitigating those impacts. So understanding that we maybe don't have the authority to push for those extra steps, but I think there is a lot that can be done within that. And so would really hope that the rental agreement and the terms of the rental are very specific and are very stringent and responsive to the concerns that folks have raised. So I think that's kind of where I land on the matter.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And
Did you want us to add your comments too?
yeah, just briefly. So I just want to echo that I agree with Commissioner Carpenter about the idea that perhaps the code should be considered for understanding, management provisions. Like, how could we get that how could that be better delineated so it's more clear what the expectation would be there? I also can agree with Commissioner Mulhern, yes, that we do not have the authority to push for these specifics in the rental agreements. I recognize that. I think it would be good to consider some of those things moving forward to help alleviate concerns. I recognize that we currently only have 7, that's 7 not counting this, so this would be 8.
Sorry, I think this would be 7.
Oh, this would be 7.
And it is possible that we have also lost at least one of those vacation rentals in the past year.
Understood.
Yeah, I think that house was sold. So,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I recognize all of those components of it. I just think it is something that we need to be putting a lot of thought into. I do think that it could be a slow creep, where it starts to eventually be something that is a greater concern. That being said, I recognize that the code, I do also recognize it as being met with that in mind.
Well, thank you all for your comments. Absolutely, one of the things that I pressed on, in the past is, the impact of housing affordability. And it all starts with gathering the data and knowing how many we have and what percentage of, our housing stock is consumed by these essentially non-residential, non-long-term residential uses, and, what impact that has on affordability. And, with being so far below 1%, we're in a very safe place with respect to the actual impact on housing costs, but it does deserve our continued attention. And I believe that, we all want to see housing affordability improve. And so as a policy from the state, from the city, that is a prerogative of ours. And so we will continue paying attention to this. And, and I don't think that any of that is lost on staff or city council when they're adopting, these code provisions. So, well, I think we are ready for a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve conditional use permit 2024-001 as presented.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you. That was unanimous in favor. So the application package for primary file number CU-2024-001 is approved. If anyone wishes to appeal the commission's decision to the city council, you must make application stating the grounds for your appeal within 15 days of the mailing of the notice of decision. Please see planning staff for detail. That's it. No work session items. So just other business. Do commissioners have any other items for discussion? If not, then we can move into the forecast for future meetings.
All right, great, thanks. This says that we have our annual joint meeting with the NDAs and the Planning Commission orientation on October 22nd. We're not having it on, I keep moving it. We keep moving because people's schedules have been so weird. So we haven't been able to line everything up. Like right now, Chair Sherman is out of the country for work, so we can't put this together before then. So we're moving it to the 12th, and that is going to be the date that we're gonna make it happen. So we will have those two things on November 12th. And then we have a second, the next Planning Commission meeting is scheduled for November 26th. And we've got two hearings scheduled that night for historic resource land use application review. And that's all I've got.
Okay, thank you. And then, okay, well, then if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, motion and a second. Any further discussion before we adjourn? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night, thank you.
Thanks.